Good evening, everyone. My name is Michell de Robert. I am a long-time resident of Lee Summit, downtown Lee Summit. I moved into Lee Summit back in June of 1988. On this artist rendition, we see the Ice House, which is the brown building. And in this early rendition, the Ice House is part of the proposed downtown city market. Now, this is a newer rendition, a newer artist rendition where we see that the ice house is gone. It has been demolished, and within its original footprint, we have a brand new building. It's a fairly massive two-story building with a flat roof. The cost of this building would be perhaps between 1.5 and $2 million. And that is a conservative figure. So I'm going to discuss the City Council meeting that took place on September 6, 2022. I was not able to be present since I was in France, in Bordeaux, visiting with my family while the meeting took place. We had been told that the meeting would take place in November, but I guess the dates were changed and the meeting took place while I was gone. So, as the vice president of the Lee Summit Historic Preservation Commission and also as the leader of the group called Save the 1896 Ice House in Lee Summit, I had to be there on Zoom and make comments.
Okay, this is just an ordinance that we're reading. So in other words, it's going to be a lot like, some TV series with, exciting news every week that you can't wait till Friday night, and the episode comes out on Netflix or whatever, and we'll be tuned in. So, not seeing any further discussion, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 8-0. Thank you all. All right, we're going to close the regular session. Open the public hearing. Matter of agenda item 5D. This is the public hearing regarding the ice house for the downtown Market Plaza redevelopment area. Would all those wishing to speak to this matter, please rise, turn on your Zoom camera, and be sworn in by the city clerk. Mr. Bushlight.
Thank you, Mayor. I will have just a few brief introductory comments, and then Paul Michell will do most of the talking on this one. This is not a formal evidentiary hearing like you're used to. This isn't something that's required by state statute. Most of your public hearings, like your zoning hearings, the hearing we just held, those are required to be held by state law. The way to think of this hearing is, I guess this is a city-initiated hearing, essentially, which is a method of you to gather input to make a decision on the ice house. And as I mentioned, your meeting packet contains two form of motions, depending on which direction you'd like to go. And the last thing I'll mention is we had a great deal of discussion and consideration about how to handle this item. And the reason we separated from the hearing that you just held, for numerous reasons, includes in case you need more time to make this decision, we didn't want to hold up the items that you just acted on. So I mentioned that in case you are wrestling with your decision and you're not ready tonight. But it's as usual, it's your decision to make whenever you like to make it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Paul Michell, GLMB Architecture, pleased to be with you again to visit with you about this project. The purpose of our conversation tonight is for us to essentially summarize sort of the investigative work that we had done earlier this year in regards to the ice house, give you as much information as possible to allow you to make the best decision you can for your community and for the project. Just to give you a little bit of bearings, I won't belabor the point because we all understand where the project area is and where the ice house is. What I'd like to draw your attention to most importantly is the diagram on the right. The primary original ice house structure is the gray portion constructed in 1896. There was a portion constructed around 1940, which is the green section, the flat roof section. And then later in the 60s was the sort of the flat, more of a shed roof section there in the red, immediately at the corner of Second and Green. So we'll talk a little bit about those portions of the structure as we get into the conversation here, and as I might have to answer some questions as well. So early this year, we visited the property with our team as well. Shannon McGuire with the City of Lee Summit escorted us into the property. It was Jennifer Gerlach representing, Lane 4 Property Group. It was myself and a colleague, Dan Pierce, from GLMB Architecture. We had Rachel Consuelo from Rosin Preservation, a noted historic preservation consultant here in town. And then we had Adam O'Kane and Amanda Bush from Lee O'Kane, which is a local Lee Summit engineering firm, structural engineer that we have on part of our team. We spent a bit of time in there. We looked at all aspects of the building, inside and out, from top to bottom, all the way, crawling around up in the attic, all the way down into the basement, and collected as much information as we could, without doing destructive investigations. So I said, Lee O'Kane was looking structurally, Rosin Preservation was looking at this from a historic preservation aspect. And ultimately, what we wanted to do is collect information to determine what work was going to need to be undertaken in order to bring this structure back up to sort of a good canvas to be able to build upon and initiate a new use in there. So there was a lot of work that was going to be needed. Essentially, the interior has got a lot of non-code compliant, non-accessible areas need to be gutted. Need to look at that building structure further. The roof structure has been damaged by fire previously. There's a lot of it that needs to be replaced. There's been some structural members up in the attic that have been modified and cut that are compromised and need to be reinforced and fixed. A lot of the environmental remediation that David had mentioned previously, everything from asbestos to lead to some of the petroleum byproducts that were present there from some of the automotive work businesses that have operated there previously. Foundation has got some settling, some areas that need to be underpinned and fixed. A lot of tuck pointing, a lot of cracking in the old stone walls, tuck pointed and fixed. Looking at what these modern uses could be, things like upgrading electrical service, providing new sanitary service. If it's a restaurant, it will need grease interceptor. Fire sprinkler system is a very real thing that could be needed. And we were really looking at an additional cost of anywhere between 2.6 and 3.4 at the time when we were estimating this back in April. This was a breakdown of those. We actually had two estimates completed, one using our in-house professional cost estimator and one using a local contractor, the Lane 4 engaged. And it was sort of the breakdown of how that worked between construction costs, looking at as far as we thought prudent at the time to the end of the year when that work might be undertaken if the decision was to salvage the structure, including professional fees and detailed structural analysis, that additional environmental testing that we believe is going to be needed once you start to uncover portions of the building. And then we had some contingency in there because we just don't know what we don't know at this point. We've gone back very recently before preparing this package for council's consideration to look at what the construction costs are doing in the market. And hearing, you guys have heard these figures in recent meetings. We're looking at 1% to 1.5% a month in escalation. So the delta between the escalation we had figured in April and the escalation that we are seeing now in the market could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 to a little over $100,000 of additional cost above and beyond the estimates that we prepared earlier. So it's important to know that once this work is going to be required of the city should they want to improve it and make it ready for a new tenant, or if
I'd like to make a first comment here. The low cost of the construction cost of $1,797,000, 690. this number appeared when the team of builders came to the historic preservation meeting. And what I'm seeing is that we are going from $1.797 million to $2.613 million. I have here an estimate that was made by a company located in Kansas, and they are, I believe, in Overland Park, and they're called the Heron Companies, the Ice House Restoration. And what I'm showing is that going down, we end up getting a grand total of 1,705,935. So $1.7 million here. Of course, we do have inflation, and this is taken into account, but it's hard to believe that they went from almost $1.8 million to $2.6 million in just a few months. This is just baffling. Another thing I would like to emphasize is that the Rosin Presentation firm from Kansas City, Missouri, that does the research